Hello children, we are going to learn a very important lesson today. This lesson will help you through your journey when you have to write essays, explanations, information or stories. Try to follow every important point that I highlight throughout the lesson. Are you ready? Let's move on. Paragraphing. Let us make words. Words form phrases. Phrases create sentences. Sentences build paragraphs. Sentences build paragraphs. A paragraph is a group of sentences about one main idea. Let's look at the importance of paragraphing. Having paragraphs in fictions make it easier for the readers to follow. We often begin new paragraphs when different characters speak, the setting changes, or the time changes. Now, let's look at an example. Captain Black and his mate Smithy were on board their pirate ship, Treasure Seeker. The ship was anchored in a small bay of a deserted island. They were looking at an old treasure map. They made a plan to get the treasure. They rowed from the ship and stood on the beach. Captain Black looked at the map and then pointed to a small cliff. The first thing we have to do, he said, is to climb that cliff. Halfway up the cliff, Smithy was in trouble. His foot slipped and he almost fell. Captain Black grabbed him and hauled him into the top. They were now on the edge of thick vegetation. They walked carefully into the thick, gloomy forest, chopping back huge leaves that barred their way. "Look!" shouted Smithy. "I can see sunlight. We must be coming out the other side." This is a fiction, or we call it a made-up story about a couple of pirates, Captain Black and Smithy, his mate. They were treasure seekers. Now, in the first paragraph, it describes the things that happened when they were on board their pirate ship. They looked at an old treasure map and made a plan of how to get the treasure. The second paragraph begins when they have landed on the beach. There, they decided to climb a cliff. The third paragraph begins to say what happened while they were climbing up the cliff. Smithy had a fall and Captain Black helped him. And finally, the fourth paragraph describes about getting into a thick forest which was at the top of the cliff. Now, did you see how easy for us to understand the story when it's written in paragraphs? Paragraphs are separated according to different settings in this story. Now, if I instantly ask you a question, in which paragraph did they make a plan to get the treasure? It was in the first paragraph. Then, if I ask you, in which paragraph did it describe about that they were getting into a thick forest? Yes, it was in the fourth paragraph. It's really easy to follow and understand a story when it's written in paragraphs. So, you can separate paragraphs when the setting changes, when the time changes, or when different characters get into the story. I'm going to show you an example on an exercise. This is exercise A, which is in page 100 in your pupil book. Now, in exercise A, they have given us notes to show on what happens next in the story Treasure Island, which was in Unit 12. I would like to talk further about notes. As we learned in the lesson Suspension Bridges, notes mean the same as keywords and phrases which will help you to write a paragraph. Now, let's look at the first set of notes. Next day, Square Trelawney finds a ship. The Hispaniola belongs to Captain Smollett, meets Long John Silver, takes him on as ship's cook. So, now we are going to write a paragraph using the given notes. But, if you move on down to question B, it says to write the story thinking that you are Jim Hawkins, the main character, and if you are telling the story. Now let's find out how to write a paragraph. Follow the instructions carefully. We show the beginning of a new paragraph by indenting the first line. So, you can start the first line from the middle of the line. And every time that you start a new paragraph, remember to indent the first line. Now, I'm going to start the paragraph from the middle of the line using the first word. The next day, Square Trelawney found a ship called the Hispaniola belonged to Captain Smollett. As we were about to climb on board, we met Long John Silver and took him on as ship's cook. Now let's note the following. Just compare the notes and the paragraph and study the changes we made when converting the notes into sentences and sentences into paragraphs. Look at the highlighted verbs in the notes and in the paragraph. In the notes, the present simple tense verbs were turned into past simple tense because Jim Hawkins describes what had already happened. Finds changed into found. Belongs changed into belonged. Takes changed into took. Next, to connect the sentences in an interesting way, I added a phrase on my own saying, as we were about to climb on board. So remember, you also can add in phrases, words, conjunctions to have an interesting flow. The word word "we" was specially added as they ask us to write the story thinking as Jim Hawkins. And Jim Hawkins was telling the story by himself. So, dear children, this video was specially designed for you to show the important points of paragraphing. As I told you, this is a special lesson which will guide you right through your journey when you happen to express yourself in paragraphs. You can watch the video again and again until you be firm and thorough in writing paragraphs.